Hello YouTube, this is Almagent here, bringing you the first in the archive series on Wargame European Escalation, where I give a brief but accurate summary of the main units that you'll want to use in Wargame European Escalation, their advantages, their disadvantages, the scenarios you'll use them in, and some basic gameplay tips to get you started in this game. Wargame's quite a tricky game to master. It's very realistic, very detailed, so this is basically what we're going to do. So, first off, I'm going to be explaining the units you're going to want to get when you start the game. Wargame works on an unlock system, where you start off with a few basic units unlocked, and then as you complete campaign missions and multiplayer levels, you gain extra points which you can spend unlocking further units. I've unlocked all of them, so I'm going to just go through them and tell you which ones are worth your while. We're going to start off with Warsaw PACT, as this is the side I generally play as, so I know more, but I will be doing NATO as well. And in this first episode, we're going to be covering the logistic, the Recon, and the support vehicles of the Warsaw PACT. Okay, so first off, logistic. Logistic covers the basic logistics of your army. They don't have any combat use directly, and you'll never really want them in a fight. If they are, you're doing something wrong, but they're vital to the running of your army. Okay, logistic vehicles are split into two categories: the command vehicles, which are identified by the star you can see there, and supply vehicles that keep your unit refueled. Command vehicles are the most important units in your deck, as with them you can control sectors, allowing you to gain points to reinforce units to build up your army. And supply vehicles, which make sure that your units that you have on the field always have enough fuel, enough armor, and enough ammunition to deal with the enemy. So, first off, logistics. Okay, now you'll start off with Warsaw PACT with only one command vehicle, the UAZ 469B. And basically this is a standard command vehicle, as you'll find out the game. It's fairly fast. And it can go quite far. But okay, similar and a similar unlock would be the Veren's UAZ, the East German variant, which are identical in every way. And basically, this in the classic command vehicles, what they are basically is they're the cheapest form of command vehicles at the minimum 200 points required for a command vehicle, but they do not have any armor and they do not have any means to defend themselves. Okay, generally, they're a very bad unit to use. You'll never actually, once you've unlocked the armored command vehicles, which I'd recommend as a priority, you'll never want to field these in the game, because they may be the cheapest, but they're still 200 points, and you can only have a limited amount of them in a game. So basically, you want to keep these guys safe. And keeping them safe means keeping them armored. Your recon units, for a small amount of expenditure, have a lot more survivability. Okay, and when you're spending this much on a unit, you're going to want to keep it safe. Even a stray artillery shell can knock these out in one hit. They only have 5 health points, and as you can see, no armor. However, their advantage is generally you can field them in a much greater quantity than the other command vehicles. They're usually limited to either 2 or 4 being able to build. These guys can have 6, so they are good on very large maps in Wargame and when you're playing with a smaller number of people, because otherwise you might not be able to build. If you're only using the armored command vehicles, you might not have the resources and the quantity to capture all the zones, meaning that even if you've secured an area, you will not be able to fully utilize it. So that's their advantage. So I'd use these on sort of big maps where I can put them far behind the lines, and hopefully the enemy won't be targeting them. Okay, then we'll move on to the first armored command vehicle, the BDR DM2U. This is my personal favorite command vehicle. It costs a bit 20 units more, but it goes faster. It doesn't have the same kind of range as the other units, actually. Yeah, it only can go 750 kilometers compared to 1,000, but this has armor and it has a full 10 health points. Unless there is a concentrated artillery barrage that's been corrected. You don't have to fear these units. This is actually, I think, the best command armor in the game, because it boasts a 4-unit deployable. So you can deploy 4 of these, which is more than satisfactory for most games. If you're just doing the small number of players in small maps, or 4 players in the bigger maps, generally these will suit you for the game. Okay, and then we move on to the BDRM 1K. This version of the command armor is 250, so it's a bit more than the BDRM 2U. From what I remember, you can only field 2 of these per game. But their advantage is they have a gun. This is one of the few command units, and the only one in the Warsaw Pact, that can defend itself. The cannon itself isn't that good. It's got the same kind of range as a tank gun, but it's inaccurate and it can't really damage anything, and it's got low ammo. So it's basically, don't lower the defenses when you're fielding this command vehicle because you think, oh, it's got a gun. Don't. Okay, this is a last resort weapon that could maybe finish something off that's just about on the edge of routing after clearing through your defenses. It's slower than the others, the 60 kilometers an hour. So keep this in mind. If it's running from stuff, the other units, such as the other command vehicles, it won't be able to run away as fast as they can. On the plus side, though, it does have exceptional optics. One of the only 2 packed units that has this benefit. And it's a plus factor definitely, but it might cost 30 points more. But then you could save 30 points by not having a recon vehicle in its defense. Worth considering. And then finally, the Mi2D command helo. This was originally 300 points. Eugen has now lowered it to 240. Also, guess what? A last point on the BDRM 1K. If you're using this, I'd recommend using it in conjunction with the BDRM 2U. Basically, use these as sort of behind the front line to protect them from artillery, and then as a front line unit, this is what I'd recommend because it's a bit tougher. I think it has. Yeah, it's also got side armor 1, compared to the BDRM, which has only got front 1. So worth keeping in mind. It's a tougher unit. But anyway, back to the command helo. Command helos are an interesting unit. Basically, they have the same kind of health as the command vehicles, but they cost 40 more. For this, you get the fact that they're a helicopter, which means they have excellent speed of 260, which means that if you can spot a threat to it in time and manage to take it off, as long as there's no AA in the air, it can run away from any threat to it much easier than the other units can. Also, you can use it to capture points deep in enemy territory that they might have ignored, especially on big maps. It can be very useful as a sort of flanking maneuver, where you start off the game with one of these and maybe a few defense helos, fly it to like a reinforcement zone that the enemy would normally capture it first thanks to its amazing speed of 260 kilometers an hour, and then deploy units from there right in their rear. Shake it up a bit. However, of course, this is a command helo. It's very weak. So yeah, basically this is a sort of a wild card. You generally don't see command helos in Wargame, but they do have their use. Okay, so next up we have the FOB forward operating bases. Okay, now these are quite a fairly unique unit in the terms of you can only field these once in the deployment phase at the start of a game. Once the game is started, these are no longer available to buy. They cost 100 each, and with that give 10,000 supplies. Now, of course, these are a building; you can't move them, so they're limited to the starting area. But put it simply, this is by far the most cost-effective way of supplies. Okay, so basically, the use of these is usually recommended because it means that your other supplies, convoys, such as these units here, once they're out of supplies, there is still use for them. You can take them back to the FOB and refill them. So basically this is your reserves. The trucks are your transport methods with a bit of supplies extra. as a benefit. I believe this is unlocked in the start of the deck, and it's always a useful thing to have because it'll save you a lot of points during the game.